So my name is Berto, and I'm very happy to be here. I work with the Association of Evangelicals in Africa, and it would be very rude of me to come here and not acknowledge that I have some of my friends and colleagues back there from 3 different countries in Africa. So we have Sierra Leone, we have DRC, and the other one is not as relevant. I thought it would also be nice to this is me trying to break the ice, because I am very nervous. I have to teach you how to say hello in Swahili. Everybody says jambo when you come, but if you live in Kenya, because I come from Kenya, jambo is foreign speak. Tell anyone jambo, we know you're a foreigner. So the real way to say hello is habari. Say it with me. Habari. And the response is mzuri. Mzuri means I'm fine. So habari is how are you, and then mzuri, or mzuri-sana is I'm fine, thank you. So if you remember nothing from my presentation, at least you learned something. You learned some Swahili words. So because we were given 8 minutes, I'm not necessarily sure what I can say that these 2 men of God haven't exactly said. So I thought I want to paint the picture of where I come from. We're told by statistics that Africa is set to become home of 50% of the world's youth by 2050, making it the only continent with a growing youth population, which is great for Africa, right? Because it means we will have a vibrant workforce and all of these things. But the same statistics also say that in the same year, 2050, 90% of the world's poorest will be found in Africa. So it's a very daunting task for us as African leaders. There's this weight on our shoulders where we have to think, okay, what can we do that's different? What are we doing that's not working right now? How can we change this narrative? Because 2050 is only 27 years away. Yep. Most of us will be alive by then, hopefully, if Jesus doesn't come before then. So we have to ask ourselves, how do we make sure that this narrative doesn't come to pass? And this is why I love gatherings like this, because we're able to not only think together, but also pray together, and just dedicate us to the Lord and say, if this is what they're predicting, it has to be different. The narrative has to change. So when we also think about these statistics, for me, it's always really important, as an African, to think about contextualizing the gospel. We read in 1 Corinthians chapter 19, I think. 1 Corinthians 9:19. And this is Paul speaking. Paul says, "For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a servant to all, that I may win the more. And to the Jews I become as a Jew, that I may win the Jews. To those who are under the law, as under the law, that I might win those who are under the law. To those who are without the law, as without the law, not being without the law toward God, but under Christ, that I may win those who are without law. To the weak I become as weak, that I may win the weak. I have become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some." So when I interact with African leaders, one thing we agree, and I think it's the same for the rest of the world as well, is that the church is normally very busy and very committed to answering questions that nobody's asking. We're moving, and we're doing all these things, we're doing all this amazing work, and we're wondering, why is it not bearing fruit? Paul here espouses the need for contextualization. He's not saying that he's making or even watering down his message to gain acceptance. No, Paul is saying that he modifies his approach to make sure that the people who he's preaching to are able to receive the message. Because also this is an intergenerational meeting, I have to acknowledge that Dr. Pompang is also very young in spirit. We also have to acknowledge that there's a post that was shared by the North American Evangelical Fellowship that talked about how the different generations, it's called generational theory. This theory espouses that the different generations have almost like a unique temperament and flavor to them. So they're all asking different questions. And I thought this was interesting to share with us, even as we think of the future of the church. So for the boomers who were born between 1946 to 1954, the question they're asking is, what is true? So this generation seeks unwavering truth and will anchor their lives around it. They're drawn to apologetics and solid intellectual foundations. So you see the age of C.S. Lewis and people like that coming up in this generation. The next one, do we have any boomers here, by the way? Awesome, yeah, some representatives. The Gen X, born between 1965 to 1980, here. A couple of us, a lot more than the boomers. The facts of science and argument might put them off. So they value authentic life stories and personal connections. They want to know what's genuine and meaningful. So we saw the age of biographies and autobiographies really become prominent in this age. The next one is the millennials, who are, how many people here were born between 1981 and 1996? Majority of us, I just made the cut. They're optimistic and desire to contribute positive change in the world. This is known also as the doer generation. They care very much about the eternal, but also about the present. And they're driven by a desire to change societal norms that they deem harmful. The next generation, Gen Zs. Any Gen Zs here? They're born between 1997 and 2015. How many Gen Zs? I didn't see. A couple. Not as many. So, the generation that are asking what is beautiful. They grow up in a world dominated by social media. They're deeply influenced by aesthetics, and they want to know what is worth their attention and devotion. This generation care about what is worthy, what is beautiful enough for them to worship. And the next one, which also is what I found the most interesting, is the Gen Alpha. We don't know what the range will be, but we likely ask what is human. So they will be confronted with questions about human identity in the face of advancing AI and technology. And why is this important? These are gateway questions that help us understand how to modify the gospel in a manner that addresses the questions that people are actually asking, as opposed to giving them answers about questions we ourselves are asking or what we want to give them. We have to come to a place where contextualization of the gospel is really important. The median age of Africa is 18 years. This means that 50% of Africa is Gen Z. So the church has to ask themselves, as they ask what is beautiful, or the generation before that, what is human, the church must go beyond their roles as teachers of the word and start raising entrepreneurs that can reproduce themselves and disciple other people. We have to get to a point where we do holistic discipleship and adaptive leadership, where we're saying it doesn't end with the church producing pastors. We have to now do other things, especially within Africa with the statistics that we were told are going to come to pass in 2050. The church has to do this thing. We have to modify ourselves and not box ourselves and say this is the only place where we function. We have to extend outside the borders and reach those we can't reach and actually transform society. I am so burdened by this, and even as Mark was talking about the urgency, 27 years is not a long time. I'm 27 years old. I just turned 28, but it counts. I don't feel like I've lived that long. So I'm imagining, okay, I'll probably will I be in my 40s? My math is not good. Or 50s by then. And I dread to see that statistic come to life. But I also love that it's such a big thing. It's a mammoth of a task. And I think the reason why it's that big is so that we can go back to the place of dependency. And I'm reminded of the words of Jeremiah 17, verse 7 to 8, and I wrote it down just as I sat there. He said, "But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green." So the statistics might be true, but we know that the Holy Spirit is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we could ever ask, think, of, imagine. So what is our role as the church? Obedience and dependence. That is what the future of the church looks like.